Welcome back. You're with BBC News. Now, as promised, we're going to get more on our top story. Downing Street saying that President Trump was wrong to diminish the role of NATO troops during the war in Afghanistan. And as we've been hearing, there's been such angry backlash to the US president's claims that NATO allies avoided the front line during the conflict. Roughly a third of coalition soldiers killed in Afghanistan were non-American. They came from more than 30 countries, mostly the UK. Well, my colleague Tom Edgington from BBC Verify has been looking into those numbers for us. And I think it's just worth, Tom, just reminding everybody, what exactly did the president claim?
Yeah, so let's start with the claim which was made yesterday in an interview with Fox News. So he downplayed NATO's involvement in Afghanistan, claiming NATO troops stayed a little off the front lines. That was the exact wording. But it is false. OK, so thousands of non-US troops risked their lives during the war, and obviously, you know, there's footage of them doing so, and some of them were wounded and killed. And I think it's useful context to remember that after the 9/11 attacks in 2001, it was the US that invoked NATO's collective defence clause. It's called Article 5, and it is the only member of the alliance to have done this. And that led to NATO allies going into Afghanistan to assist the US military campaign there. And by making this claim, the president has provoked a very strong reaction among leading politicians. So, as you say, Downing Street says that Trump is wrong, but you also have Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservative Party, saying the comments are flat out nonsense. And the White House has now put out a response, but it doesn't talk about troop movement specifically. Instead, it says America's contribution to NATO dwarfs that of other countries. So it doesn't actually address the claim head on.
Exactly. And you've been looking at the data, Tom, which shows that America's NATO allies actually suffered high casualty rates. Talk us through it.
Yeah, so we've been having a look at all the numbers, and in total, personnel from 51 NATO countries and its partners were deployed at some point during the 20-year conflict. And the data on casualties shows that soldiers from 24 countries, NATO countries, died during the period. And we've taken this from iCasualties. It's a website that has tracked deaths in Afghanistan from 2001 to 2021 when troops withdrew. And it shows that the US suffered the highest number of deaths overall. There were 2,465. Followed by the UK with 457 deaths, and then Canada with 158. But if we focus on the 457 British deaths, we know that the majority, 88%, were killed due to hostile military action, according to the Ministry of Defence. But it's not just about deaths, because many also suffered life-changing injuries serving on the front line.
And Tom, we're looking at a graph which shows what happens when you adjust the data for each NATO country's population, because that is really significant.
Yeah, so we've got the chart there on the screen. So there are different ways, of course, that you can look at the data. And if we look at the losses relative to the size of the population of each country, you can see the results. So when you do that, the US narrowly tops the list with 7.9 deaths per 1 million, but that's very closely followed by Denmark with 7.7, and then the UK with 7.2, and Estonia with 6.7. So I think whatever way you look at the numbers, it is simply not credible for Trump to claim that non-US troops avoided the front line in Afghanistan.
Tom, thank you so much for talking us through that. That is also available on our website. But Tom Edgington from BBC Verify, thank you so much for just fact-checking that for us. Thank you.